Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Conservancy Connections. My name is Kelly and I am the coastal educator from the Bald Head Island Conservancy. The Bald Head Island Conservancy is a small environmental nonprofit located on Bald Head Island, North Carolina. We are known for our sea turtle conservation, education programs, and barrier island studies. We are unable to teach during this crazy time, so we decided to come to you guys. And we've been talking about a whole bunch of different animals, and I think this one just might be the most interesting one yet. If you guys do want to support the Conservancy, we do have a donation link down below. Please put education in the comments section if you do, so we know where the donation is coming from. And without further ado, let's learn about an animal. Alright guys, today we are going to be learning about jellies. Jellies are absolutely insane creatures. They are so diverse. There's so many of them. So many of them are misunderstood. They have crazy adaptations that make them perfectly adapted for what they do, and there's just so many of them. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is, what is a jellyfish? Even though our jellies have fish in the name, they are not fish. They do not have a backbone. Their body is completely gelatinous, and many of them are actually clear. They do not have a hard structure like our backbone. Sometimes their bodies can be rigid, but they're not going to be fully hard. So this guy right here is considered a true jellyfish, and he has the pretty typical structure that you might see in many other jellies. We will go into different types of jellies in just a little bit. But first I want you guys to get just a feeling of what a jelly even is. So this very top part up here, this is called its bell. And this is where its stomach lies, this is where its reproductive parts lie. Hanging down below right here, these straight guys over here, these are those tentacles. The tentacles are covered in stinging cells, and all stinging cells are just a little bit different with different toxins, different strengths of the sting. There is a rule of thumb that the longer the tentacle, the more powerful the sting. So this guy that I'm holding, this would be a pretty powerful sting. While there are some jellies that have very short little tentacles, and those typically don't even have a strong enough sting to even sting a human. These stinging tentacles are mostly for those jellies to be able to eat. So they are going to sting whatever they're eating, or maybe even to protect themselves. So they're going to sting what they're trying to eat, so then their feeding arms are able to bring it to their mouth. So these guys right here, the really beautiful long structures, those are their oral arms. So these arms will then bring whatever they stung up into their mouth, kind of like this, so then their mouth can then put it in their stomach. The last part of a jelly is their muscular ring. So this thing right here that is around the outside, this is how they're able to move. They will pulse kind of like this. But they're not able to turn super well. They are not the best swimmers for the most part. So a lot of times they are just at the mercy of the currents. And because they are at the mercy of the currents, many of them are called plankton. So if an animal is just floating through the water and they are not moving with a purpose, then they are considered plankton. So this is one of the biggest types of plankton you can find. Next, let's talk about their crazy life cycle. Similar to our reptiles, these jellies need certain temperatures to breed. Whenever the water gets to be about 10 degrees Celsius or about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, our jellies are going to spawn. And then they will create larvae. So they will have a little planule larva that's just looks similar to a little circle with little spikes along the side. And then it settles to the bottom of the ocean. From there, it forms a polyp. A polyp looks very similar to an anemone. They attach to the bottom and they start to form little upside down jellies on that polyp. So they look almost like little rings, like a stack of jellies on top of each other. As it grows, as the temperature gets to where it needs to be, these jellies will start to pop off the top of those polyps. And then they become another type of larva. This is called Ephyra. So these are just little tiny baby jellies. They are finally able to eat, and they can start to swim around, and as they grow, they turn into a medusa. A medusa is the typical jelly that you are going to see. This guy right here is the adult form, and this is the end of their life cycle. This is where they want to be. This is them as an adult. So then these guys, once the temperature turns about 10 degrees Celsius, they will spawn and the life cycle will start all over again. Because these guys are so dependent on temperature, they are starting to spawn earlier and earlier in the year. So this is why we are starting to see them even more. This is turning into a fisheries issue because the jellies are eating things they didn't before. Our jellies like to eat fish larvae, very small plankton, very small things that they are able to sting with those stinging cells. Next, let's talk about jelly blooms. So these jellies, like I said before, these jellies are not able to really control where they are moving. So these jelly blooms, for the most part, are just when currents are just right and it's pushing them all together into one spot. So this can also be an issue for fisheries because as they're trying to catch fish, there's just tons of jellies. The jellies are eating all the larvae, they're eating the very tiny little fish. Some jellies will even eat other jellies, I'll talk about that later, but they are all just really close together and it just looks crazy. There are tons of jellies all over the place. A lot of people say that these blooms are increasing, but this is in fact incorrect. These blooms are going up and down in about a 22-year cycle. So right now we're on the downturn of those cycles, but we will go back up. And this is all completely natural. Does not mean that they are increasing. But one main reason why people think that the populations of these jellies and these blooms are increasing is because people are finally seeing them more often than they ever did before. People are going to the beach more often than they ever did before. People are doing more research out in the ocean more than they ever did before. So people are just coming in contact with these jellies way more than they ever did. Alright, so there are tons of different types of jellies. The first one that I'm going to talk about is called a comb jelly. Comb jellies are beautiful creatures. They look very different than that you think about when you think about a jelly. They are non-stinging. They don't have those tentacles like I was showing you on the stuffed jelly. They are wild. They are so different looking, and many of them feed superfluously. And this means that the food is coming in, and as it is entering their body, they're able to eat it. They are not actively catching that food. Another type of comb jelly that actually eats other jellies. This is called Burrowee, and these guys have gelatinous teeth. So they have these gelatinous teeth so that they are able to chomp down on other jellies and they are able to eat them. So these comb jellies are absolutely beautiful. Many of them have bioluminescence. Bioluminescence is when an animal is able to glow. It is a protein that they have in their bodies that allows them to be able to glow. So a lot of times these proteins will glow whenever they are agitated, so it scares away a predator. Many animals that have this bioluminescence live in the deep ocean or out in the middle of the ocean in the middle of the night. So if a predator is coming up to eat them and they flash a color, then it scares off the predator and then the predator swims away. So there are many animals out there that have this bioluminescence, and these jellies are just one of them. Another type of jelly that is the most common, that most people see out in the ocean that is closer to shore, are cnidarians. These cnidarians are our box jellies, our moon jellies, our sea nettles, our cannonballs. They are also the Portuguese Manofwars. They are super diverse, and these are the more typical jellies that you can think of. Moon jellies are a clear type of jelly like you can see here. Their tentacles are so short that they are not able to hurt a human. I do not recommend touching any jellies if you see them on the beach because some people's skins are more sensitive than others. But these guys are eating little plankton. They are eating very small things, so their nematocysts are not able to sting as strongly as another type of jelly. Another type of jelly that we have around North Carolina is the sea nettle. Sea nettles are beautiful, and they have extremely long tentacles and extremely long feeding arms. So these guys do pack a punch, they do sting pretty strong, and they are just absolutely gorgeous. One very common jelly that we see washed up on our beaches that people are starting to see around now are cannonball jellies. People can actually eat cannonball jellies, and there is a fishery down in South Carolina that farms them so that we're able to eat them. Cannonball jellies look like this. They have little short stubby tentacles and feeding arms. They have a pretty tough bell, so if you pick them up by the bell, they can keep their structure. Here is a nice video of this cannonball jelly swimming. So this is what these jellies are looking like when they are swimming through the water. Next, let's talk about box jellies. Box jellies look a little bit different. They are more of a boxy structure. They have 4 long stinging tentacles. These guys are a little bit more advanced than the typical jelly. They have eyes, and these eyes are not super strong. They are definitely able to see structures, they are able to see light and dark, and this helps them hunt. They are stronger swimmers than the typical jellies, and they also eat larger prey. So they will eat a little bit higher up on the food chain, so some small fish and shrimp and little crustaceans and things like that, whatever they can catch. Another type of jelly that we find washed up on the beach in North Carolina is the Portuguese Manofwar. And I might do a video just on these all on their own because they are just so cool. They are a colony of animals. So like how coral is a colony of animals all living together, these Portuguese Manofwars are a colony all living together. That top bubble, that bell that floats on top of the water, that is filled with carbon monoxide. And that is one animal, while their tentacles are made up of hundreds of little animals all stuck together. Their feeding parts are one animal, and it is just so cool. They are absolutely amazing animals, and they are a colony all put together. And whenever you talk about jellies, you have to talk about the immortal jelly. And this is Teratopsis. This jelly can actually revert back into a polyp after it is a medusa. So if its body form is not exactly what it wants it to be, it can revert back to a polyp down on the bottom of the ocean and regrow itself. So they do not need to reproduce like regular jellies. They can just do kind of whatever they want. So jellies are really crazy, but they are also really important to the ecosystem. Many animals will eat these jellies. Some fish will eat them, especially when they are larvae. And also our turtles are going to be eating lots and lots of jellies. But our jellies are also eating many of those larvae as well. So if there were no jellies, many of our fish populations would be growing out of control. And then they would be eating other fish populations that then will cease to exist. And they are just a key part of that food web. There are also many types of animals that have relationships with our jellies. So there are certain lobsters that live inside a jelly and then eat it. There are also certain crabs that can live inside of jellies. And there are animals that only eat jellies, so they are just absolutely crucial to the food web. There's also been many medical discoveries from jellies. From that bioluminescence that I was talking about, from a specific jelly called Aquaria, they had a green bioluminescence that is a protein that they then have used for medical advances. So these jellies are extremely important to humans as well. But even though these jellies are so crazy and they are so important, there is not a whole lot known about them, like where they are, how they're moving, how they're swimming around, what their cycles are like. So we need you guys to help us as well. We want you guys to do some citizen science. You guys can go on to jellywatch.org and you just upload a picture of the area that you were in. So if you go to the beach and you see a jelly, upload a picture of it. If you see multiple jellies, upload a picture of it. They have plenty of questions. Even if you go to the beach and you see no jellies, let them know. They also have spots to talk about other animals, like any larger animals as well. So whatever you find, upload it to this website because it is super cool and they're trying to figure out more about jellies. Alright, so I think this is going to be a pretty long video. I wish I had more time to talk more about these jellies with you guys. I want to say an extra special thank you to Dr. Rob Condon today. He answered so many of my questions and he gave me so many cool facts and research about these jellies. And I definitely wouldn't have been able to do this video without him. So thank you guys so much for coming out today. If you do want to support the Conservancy, we have a donation link down below. Please put education in the comment section if you do decide to donate. And I want to thank all of you guys so much for hanging out with me today, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Bye.